The massive space station called Nexus grew larger and larger as the Earthship approached it. Commander Lee Taman stood at the viewing window and watched the incredible sight. The station was bigger than any city on Earth. Millions of lights twinkled across its surface like stars. Ships from dozens of different worlds flew around it like busy insects. This was humanity's first real chance to join the Galactic Federation. For 50 years, Earth had been trying to prove they belonged with the advanced alien races. Finally, the Federation agreed to let humans send a small group to their main military base. If things went well, humans could become full members. If things went badly, Earth would remain alone in space for many more years. Kim Minho pressed his face against another window and stared at the alien ships. Some looked like giant metal whales. Others were shaped like crystals or flowers. A few looked like nothing he had ever imagined. As a Navy SEAL, he had seen many strange things, but this was beyond anything in his experience. He had trained for 15 years to become one of Earth's best soldiers. Now he wondered if his training meant anything in a galaxy full of creatures who could travel between stars. The docking bay doors opened with a sound like thunder. Their small Earth ship looked tiny compared to the enormous alien vessels around it. Steam hissed as the airlocks connected. Lieutenant Park Ji-soo checked her translation device one more time. She was responsible for making sure humans did not accidentally insult any of the alien species. One wrong word could destroy Earth's chances forever. The first alien they met was tall as a building. Its skin looked like green metal and its eyes glowed red. It spoke in a voice that sounded like grinding stone, but the translation device turned its words into clear English. Welcome to Nexus Station Humans. I am Station Guard Captain Vorthak. Follow me and do not touch anything. Many things here can kill creatures as fragile as you. Kim Minho felt his jaw tighten. He had faced terrorists and enemy soldiers without fear, but something about the aliens' casual dismissal made his blood boil. The creature acted like humans were children who might hurt themselves on adult equipment. As they walked through the station, Kim Minho saw aliens of every shape and size. Some floated through the air on wings made of energy. Others rolled along the floor like living boulders. A group of creatures that looked like walking trees discussed something in voices that sounded like wind through leaves. All of them stared at the humans with expressions that ranged from curiosity to contempt. The main corridor stretched for miles in every direction. Shops and restaurants lined the walls. Kim Minho saw weapons that could probably destroy mountains, and armor that looked stronger than tank plating. Everything was built for beings much larger and stronger than humans. He felt like a mouse walking through a world made for giants. A group of reptilian soldiers blocked their path. They were 7 feet tall with scales that looked like black metal. Their leader stepped forward and looked down at Commander Lee Taman. So these are the famous humans we have heard so much about. They look even weaker than I expected. How did such tiny creatures ever learn to build spaceships? Did they find the technology by accident? Park Ji-soo stepped forward quickly. On behalf of Earth, I greet you in the name of peace and friendship between all species. We hope to learn much from the advanced civilizations of the Federation. The reptilian creature laughed. It sounded like rocks falling down a cliff. Learn from us. What could we possibly teach such primitive beings? Perhaps we could show you how real weapons work. Your little human tools probably could not scratch our armor. More aliens gathered to watch the conversation. Kim Minho noticed that none of them seemed surprised by the reptilians' rudeness. Apparently, this was normal behavior toward new species trying to join the Federation. He forced himself to stay calm even though every instinct told him to defend his people's honor. Commander Lee Taman maintained his diplomatic smile. We appreciate any wisdom the Federation can share. Earth has much to learn about life among the stars. The reptilian leader moved closer. His breath smelled like sulfur and his teeth looked like metal spikes. What you need to learn, little human, is your place. The Federation has room for strong species who can fight and conquer. We have no use for weak creatures who probably run from their own shadows. Several other alien species nodded in agreement. A creature that looked like a walking mountain spoke in a voice like an earthquake. The human homeworld has no serious predators. They evolved in safety and comfort. How can such soft beings understand the harsh realities of galactic warfare? Kim Minho watched his commander struggle to maintain diplomatic relations while being insulted by beings who had never seen humans in action. He thought about all the wars humanity had fought against itself. He remembered the enemies he had faced in dark places around Earth. These aliens thought humans were soft because they did not know the truth about what his species was capable of. Station Guard Captain Vorthak gestured for the group to continue. Moving. Your quarters are in Section 7. The cafeteria serves food compatible with your biology. Training exercises begin tomorrow at dawn station time. You will observe how real soldiers conduct themselves. As they walked deeper into the station, Kim Minho noticed that most aliens moved aside when larger species approached. Strength seemed to determine social rank here. The biggest and most dangerous-looking creatures got the most respect. Smaller species stayed quiet and avoided eye contact with the warriors. Their quarters were small but clean. The furniture was built for human-sized beings, which suggested that some species in the Federation were similar to humans in size. Park Ji-soo immediately began studying files about the different alien cultures they would encounter. Commander Lee Taemin reviewed their mission parameters and diplomatic objectives. Kim Minho stood at their small window and looked out at the busy station. Tomorrow would bring the training exercises that Station Guard Captain Vorthak had mentioned. He suspected these would be designed to show humans how outclassed they were by alien military technology and tactics. What the aliens did not understand was that humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years. They had learned to win battles not through superior strength or better equipment, but through intelligence, adaptability, and sheer determination. Kim Minho smiled grimly as he watched the alien warriors swagger through the corridors below. They were about to discover why Earth had never been conquered by any enemy despite thousands of years of constant warfare. Tomorrow, the galaxy would get its first real look at what humans could do when challenged. Kim Minho looked forward to the education these aliens were about to receive. The station cafeteria was enormous. It could hold thousands of beings at once. The ceiling stretched so high that clouds might form near the top. Tables of different sizes accommodated species ranging from tiny bird-like creatures to massive beings that looked like living asteroids. The air buzzed with dozens of different languages being translated into standard Galactic by universal communicators. Kim Minho sat with his fellow humans at a table designed for medium-sized species. The food was strange but edible. Something that tasted like chicken but was bright blue. Vegetables that changed color as he chewed them. Water that sparkled like it had stars floating in it. He tried to focus on eating but kept noticing how other aliens stared at them. Most of the stares were curious rather than hostile. Many aliens had probably never seen humans before. A few species nodded politely when they made eye contact. But the reptilian warriors from earlier sat at a large table across the room and kept making comments loud enough for the humans to hear. Look at how carefully they eat, like they are afraid the food will hurt them. I heard their planet has no real predators. They probably never had to fight for survival. No wonder they are so small and weak. Easy living makes soft soldiers. Commander Lee Taemin continued eating calmly, but Kim Minho could see tension in his jaw muscles. Park Ji-soo kept her eyes on her plate and tried to ignore the comments. As the only woman in their group, she attracted extra attention from species where females were rare or looked very different from males. The largest reptilian warrior stood up from his table. He was even bigger than Kim Minho had first thought, nearly 8 feet tall with muscles like steel cables under his black scales. Scars covered his arms and face, telling stories of many battles. His eyes glowed yellow in the cafeteria lights as he walked toward the human table. His name was Captain Vrex, according to the translator. He had fought in wars on 17 different planets. His unit had never lost a battle. Other alien soldiers watched him with respect mixed with fear. When Captain Vrex spoke, other species listened. He stopped directly behind Kim Minho's chair. The seal could feel the alien's body heat radiating down on him. Captain Vrex spoke in a voice like distant thunder. I am curious about something human. How did your people convince the Federation to let you join the military exercises? Usually, only proven warrior species are allowed to participate. Kim Minho slowly put down his eating utensil and turned around in his chair. Even sitting down, he had to crane his neck to look up at the massive alien. Captain Vrex was easily twice his weight and had natural weapons that could tear through steel. But Kim Min-ho met his glowing eyes without flinching. We earned our place, the same way every other species did, by proving we belong here. Captain Vrex laughed. The sound made nearby tables vibrate. Proving you belong. What exactly have humans proven? That you can build ships that barely travel between stars. That you can make weapons weaker than our claws. That you can wear armor thinner than our scales. Other aliens began gathering around to watch the confrontation. Some pulled out recording devices to capture what they expected would be an amusing humiliation. A few smaller species looked sympathetic, but none dared speak up against Captain Vrex. Commander Lee Taman started to stand, but Kim Min-ho raised his hand slightly. The gesture was small, but his commander understood. This was something that had to be handled by a soldier, not a diplomat. Park Jisoo kept translating, but her voice was tight with worry. Captain Vrex continued his verbal assault. On my homeworld, strength determines rank. The weak serve the strong, or they do not survive at all. Your species evolved without real challenges, so you never learned what true strength means. You think being clever makes up for being physically inferior. What would you know about strength? Kim Min-ho asked quietly. The question caught Captain Vrex off guard. He had expected fear or anger or attempts at diplomacy. Instead, the small human seemed genuinely curious about his answer. The reptilian warrior puffed out his chest and gestured to his scarred body. I know that strength comes from winning battles, from conquering enemies, from taking what you want instead of begging for it. Look at me, human, and see what a real warrior looks like. I have killed creatures twice my size with nothing but my natural weapons. Kim Min-ho nodded thoughtfully. That is impressive, but I think you might be confused about what real strength means. Now Captain Vrex did look angry. His scales darkened and his claws extended. Confused? You think I am confused about strength? Perhaps you would like to demonstrate what you think strength means. The cafeteria fell completely silent. Even the largest species stopped eating to watch what happened next. This was the moment that would define how the galaxy saw humanity. Captain Vrex was offering a direct challenge to single combat. Refusing would mark humans as cowards forever. Accepting seemed like suicide. Kim Min-ho stood up slowly. At 5 feet 9 inches, he looked like a child next to the massive reptilian warrior. His uniform was plain compared to Captain Vrex's elaborate armor. His only visible weapons were a small knife and a pistol that looked like toys next to the alien's natural claws and fangs. All right. If you want to see what human strength looks like, I am happy to show you. Park Jisoo grabbed his arm. Kim Min-ho, this is not wise. We should handle this through diplomatic channels. Violence will only make things worse for Earth. Sometimes diplomacy is not enough, Kim Min-ho replied. Sometimes you have to show people who you really are. Captain Vrex laughed again, but this time it sounded less confident. He had expected the human to back down or ask for help from his companions. Instead, Kim Min-ho was calmly accepting a challenge that should have terrified him. For the first time, the reptilian warrior wondered if he might have miscalculated. The crowd formed a rough circle around the two fighters. Aliens from dozens of species pressed close to get a better view. Many were already placing bets on how quickly Captain Vrex would win. The odds were heavily against the human surviving more than a few seconds. Kim Min-ho removed his jacket and rolled up his sleeves. His arms looked thin compared to Captain Vrex, but they were marked with small scars from years of training and combat. He moved into a relaxed fighting stance that meant nothing to the watching aliens but would have been immediately recognized by any human martial artist. Captain Vrex flexed his claws and showed his fangs. In 3 seconds, this will be over, human. Try not to die too quickly. I want the Federation to see what happens when weak species pretend to be warriors. Kim Min-ho smiled for the first time since arriving at the station. 3 seconds sounds about right. The circle of aliens pressed closer. Kim Min-ho could smell the excitement in the air mixed with dozens of different alien scents. Some creatures smelled like flowers, others like burning metal or ocean water. Captain Vrex smelled like hot stone and old blood. His yellow eyes glowed brighter as adrenaline or whatever his species used for adrenaline began flowing through his system. Kim Minho took a deep breath and let his mind go quiet. This was something his instructors had taught him during his first year of SEAL training. When facing a larger, stronger opponent, you could not rely on matching their strength. You had to become water flowing around a rock. You had to use their power against them. Captain Vrex raised his claws above his head. Each one was 6 inches long and sharp enough to cut through steel. His muscles coiled like springs ready to unleash devastating force. The watching aliens held their breath waiting for the massacre to begin. The reptilian warrior had fought creatures from many worlds, but all of his opponents had been large and strong like himself. He had learned to win through superior size and natural weapons. What he did not understand was that humans had evolved as persistence hunters. They were not built for raw strength but for endurance, intelligence, and the ability to adapt to any situation. Kim Minho had studied hundreds of fighting styles from around Earth: boxing, wrestling, judo, karate, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, Krav Maga, and dozens of others. He had learned to read body language and predict attacks before they happened. Most importantly, he had learned that every opponent had weaknesses no matter how strong they seemed. Captain Vrex launched himself forward with tremendous speed. His right claw swept down toward Kim Minho's head, with enough force to decapitate a normal human. The alien crowd cheered, expecting to see blood and victory in the first exchange. But Kim Minho was no longer where the claw was aimed. The human had moved at the exact instant Captain Vrex committed to his attack. Instead of backing away or trying to block, Kim Minho stepped forward and to the right. The deadly claws swept through empty air while the human positioned himself inside the alien's reach, where the long arms could not generate full power. Time seemed to slow down as Kim Minho grabbed Captain Vrex's extended right arm with both hands. The reptilian skin felt like warm leather over steel cables. But Kim Minho was not trying to overpower the alien. He was using leverage and momentum, just like his judo instructors had taught him. Captain Vrex tried to recover from his missed attack, but his own forward motion worked against him. Kim Minho planted his left foot and pivoted on his heel. At the same moment, he pulled down hard on the alien's arm, while driving his right hip up into Captain Vrex's midsection. The physics were simple, but devastating. Captain Vrex's own weight and speed became weapons turned against him. The massive warrior found himself flying through the air completely out of control. His yellow eyes went wide with shock as he realized what was happening. The throw was perfect. Kim Minho had used Captain Vrex's momentum to launch him in a graceful arc that ended with 8 feet of reptilian warrior crashing into a nearby table. The impact sounded like a small explosion. Plates and food flew everywhere. The metal table buckled under the tremendous force. But Kim Minho was not finished. Before Captain Vrex could recover from the stunning impact, the human was on top of him. Kim Minho moved like flowing water, finding exactly the right position. His left knee pressed against the alien's throat just hard enough to restrict breathing without crushing the windpipe. Both of his hands locked around Captain Vrex's right arm in what human fighters called an armbar. The submission hold was flawless. Captain Vrex could not move without risking serious injury to his arm or neck. Any struggle would only make the human tighten the holds. The mighty warrior who had boasted about his strength found himself completely helpless in the grip of a creature half his size. The cafeteria had gone completely silent. Hundreds of alien eyes stared at the impossible scene. The recording devices captured every angle as the human maintained perfect control over his much larger opponent. Captain Vrex tried to speak, but could only manage a strangled whisper. "Please, I yield. I submit. Please let me go." The words that came from the universal translator shocked every alien in the room. Captain Vrex, the undefeated champion, was begging for mercy from a human. The creature they had all dismissed as weak and soft had dominated their greatest warrior in exactly 3 seconds, just as he had predicted. Kim Minho held the submission for another moment to make sure every alien understood what they were seeing. Then he slowly released the holds and stood up. He offered his hand to help Captain Vrex to his feet. The gesture of sportsmanship and mercy impressed the watching crowd almost as much as the incredible display of fighting skill. Captain Vrex accepted the offered hand. His legs shook as he stood and his breathing was labored. He looked at Kim Minho with new eyes, seeing not a weak creature but a dangerous predator who had chosen to show mercy. How? How did you do that? I am 3 times your weight. My strength could crush steel. Your species has no natural weapons or armor. Kim Minho straightened his uniform and spoke calmly. You are right, that humans are not the biggest or strongest species. But we learned something during millions of years of evolution. The biggest predator is not always the most dangerous one. He looked around at the circle of aliens who were all staring at him with new expressions. Fear mixed with respect, mixed with curiosity. On Earth we have a saying, it is not the size of the dog in the fight that matters. It is the size of the fight in the dog. The meaning was lost in translation, but somehow every alien in the cafeteria understood what he meant. They had just witnessed something that changed their entire understanding of what humans were capable of. Captain Vrex nodded slowly. His pride was wounded, but his respect for Kim Minho was genuine. You fought with honor, human. I misjudged your species. Perhaps there is more to strength than I realized. Kim Minho smiled and extended his hand for a handshake. Perhaps we can learn from each other, Captain Vrex. After all, we are supposed to be allies now. The reptilian warrior looked at the offered hand for a moment, then grasped it firmly. The gesture sealed not just peace between 2 fighters, but the beginning of a new understanding between their species. Word of the encounter began spreading through the station before Kim Minho had even returned to his table. Within hours, every alien on Nexus Station would know about the human who had defeated Captain Vrex in 3 seconds. The galaxy was about to discover that Earth was home to a very different kind of warrior than anyone had expected. The age of humans being underestimated was about to end. The news traveled through Nexus Station faster than light-speed communications. Within 2 hours, every alien on the massive facility had heard about the human who defeated Captain Vrex in single combat. The story grew with each telling until some versions had Kim Minho throwing the reptilian warrior across the entire cafeteria, but even the accurate accounts were hard for many species to believe. Kim Minho returned to his quarters to find Commander Lee Taman and Lieutenant Park Jisoo waiting for him with expressions of amazement and concern. The fight had been broadcast, live on the station's internal communication network. Every species had seen the impossible victory with their own eyes. That was either the best thing you could have done for Earth, or the worst, Park Jisoo said as she paced around the small room. On one hand, you proved that humans should not be underestimated. On the other hand, you may have made us seem like a threat to species who prefer their allies to be predictable. Kim Minho sat down on his bunk and began cleaning a small cut on his knuckle. The only injury he had sustained in the entire encounter. I did not start the fight. Captain Vrex challenged our right to be here. Sometimes you have to respond to that kind of challenge or people will never respect you. Commander Lee Taman nodded, slowly. What is done is done. Now we have to deal with the consequences. I have been receiving communication requests from dozens of species representatives. Some want to know more about human combat abilities. Others want to discuss military partnerships. A few seem concerned about whether humans might be too aggressive for the Federation. Their conversation was interrupted by a chime at their door. Park Jisoo checked the security monitor and saw Captain Vrex standing in the hallway. He was alone and had removed his armor. Instead, he wore simple clothes that made him look less intimidating, though still impressively large. He wants to talk to you, Kim Minho. Should I let him in? Kim Minho stood up and straightened his uniform. Yes. We should hear what he has to say. Captain. Vrex entered the small room, carefully ducking his head to avoid hitting the ceiling. His yellow eyes looked different than they had during the fight. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that might have been curiosity mixed with respect. I came to apologize for my behavior in the cafeteria. I made assumptions about your species based on incomplete information. That was the mistake of an ignorant warrior, not a wise one. Kim Minho gestured for the alien to sit down, though the furniture was too small for his massive frame. Captain Vrex settled onto the floor instead, folding his legs beneath him in a position that seemed comfortable despite his size. You do not need to apologize, Captain Vrex. In your position, I might have reacted the same way. No harm was done. The reptilian warrior shook his head. Harm was done. I insulted your people based on prejudice and ignorance. Where I come from, such behavior demands consequences. You could have seriously injured me during our fight, but you chose to show mercy instead. That teaches me something important about human character. Park Ji-soo activated her recording device with Captain Vrek's permission. This conversation might be historically significant for relations between humans and other species. Every word could matter for Earth's future in the Federation. Captain Vrex continued speaking in his rumbling voice. I have fought on 17 worlds against dozens of different species. I thought I understood what makes a warrior effective in combat. Size, strength, natural weapons, heavy armor. Your victory showed me that I was missing something crucial. What do you think you were missing? Kim Min-ho asked. Intelligence. Adaptability. The ability to turn an opponent's strength into a weakness. These are qualities that cannot be measured by looking at someone. They must be demonstrated through action. The alien paused and seemed to be choosing his words carefully. My species respects strength above all else, but we have been thinking about strength in the wrong way. Physical power is only one type of strength. Mental power may be even more important. Commander Lee Taemin leaned forward with interest. This was exactly the kind of breakthrough that could change how the Federation viewed humanity. What will you tell your people about what happened today? Captain Vrek smiled, showing his impressive fangs, but somehow the expression seemed friendly rather than threatening. I will tell them that humans are not what they appear to be. That your species has evolved different solutions to the problem of survival. That underestimating humans is a dangerous mistake. He stood up carefully and moved toward the door, then turned back to face Kim Min-ho. I would be honored to train with you during the remaining exercises. Perhaps you could teach me some of your fighting techniques in exchange for lessons in Vorthan combat methods. Kim Min-ho smiled and extended his hand for another handshake. I would like that, Captain Vrex. We might both learn something useful. After the alien left, Park Ji-soo began reviewing the recordings from the fight and their conversation. The material would be invaluable for preparing diplomatic communications with other species. Already she could see how the encounter might change everything for Earth. Commander Lee Taemin received another batch of communication requests while they talked. Representatives from the crystal-like ethereal species wanted to discuss human mental disciplines and meditation techniques. The massive rock creatures called Chronics were interested in human engineering and problem-solving abilities. Even some of the more advanced species were reaching out to open diplomatic channels. The most surprising message came from Station Commander Zephyr himself. The ancient being who ran Nexus Station had never before met personally with representatives from a new species during their probationary period. Now, he was requesting a formal audience with the entire human delegation. Kim Min-ho looked out their small window at the busy corridors of the station. Aliens who had ignored humans that morning now stopped to stare with obvious interest when they saw the Earth uniforms. Some nodded respectfully when they made eye contact. A few even approached to introduce themselves and ask questions about Earth culture. The change was remarkable but also concerning. Kim Min-ho had not intended to become famous throughout the galaxy. He had simply responded to a challenge the way his training demanded. Now he worried that too much attention might create new problems for his people. We need to be careful about how we handle this, Park Ji-soo said as if reading his thoughts. Suddenly, everyone wants to know about humans. That gives us opportunities, but also makes us targets for species who might see us as competitors. Commander Lee Taemin was already thinking several steps ahead. We need to demonstrate that humans can be valuable allies without seeming like we want to dominate anyone. The fight showed our capabilities, but our response to victory will show our character. Kim Min-ho nodded in agreement. The real test would come in the following days as they participated in joint training exercises with dozens of alien species. Everyone would be watching to see how humans performed when working with others rather than against them. A new message arrived from Captain Vrex containing detailed information about Vorthan military traditions and combat philosophy. He had also included an analysis of Kim Min-ho's fighting style written for other species who wanted to understand what they had witnessed. The report was remarkably accurate and respectful. Captain Vrex described human combat techniques as highly evolved adaptations to fighting opponents with superior physical advantages. He emphasized the intelligence and restraint Kim Min-ho had shown during their encounter. Most importantly, he included a warning to other species about the dangers of underestimating humans based on their appearance. Captain Vrex wrote that humans were like still water that looked calm on the surface but concealed powerful currents beneath. The message ended with a formal recommendation that the Federation accelerate Earth's integration into full membership status. Coming from a warrior of Captain Vrex's reputation, the recommendation would carry significant weight with military leaders throughout the galaxy. Kim Min-ho smiled as he read the report. 3 seconds of action had changed not just his life, but potentially the entire future of human civilization. Sometimes the smallest moments had the biggest consequences. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and opportunities as the galaxy began to see humans in a completely different light. The age of human isolation was ending. The age of human partnership with the stars was about to begin. The training ground was massive enough to hold armies from a dozen worlds at once. Kim Min-ho stood with his human teammates watching as alien species demonstrated their combat capabilities to each other. The morning exercises had become much more interesting since news of his victory over Captain Vrex spread throughout the station. Species that had barely acknowledged human existence the day before now watched every move the Earth delegation made. When Kim Min-ho walked past groups of alien soldiers, they stopped their conversations and stared with expressions of curiosity, mixed with respect. Some even nodded politely or offered brief greetings in standard Galactic. The crystal beings called ethereals approached first. They moved like living glass sculptures and communicated through harmonious tones that sounded like music. Their leader spoke in a voice like wind chimes singing, "We have observed the recording of your combat encounter, human Kim Min-ho. Your species demonstrates fascinating mental disciplines that we would like to understand better. How do you achieve such perfect focus under pressure?" Kim Min-ho was surprised by the question. He had expected aliens to ask about fighting techniques, not meditation practices. The ethereals were known throughout the galaxy for their advanced understanding of consciousness and mental abilities. Their interest in human psychology was unexpected but welcome. We train our minds as much as our bodies. Staying calm during danger is just as important as knowing how to fight. Would you like to see some of our meditation and breathing techniques? The lead ethereal pulsed with colors that the translator indicated meant excitement and agreement. We would consider such knowledge sharing to be most valuable. Perhaps we could demonstrate some of our own mental disciplines in exchange. Commander Lee Taman watched the interaction with satisfaction. This was exactly the kind of cultural exchange that could benefit both species, while strengthening Earth's position in the Federation. The humans had something to offer, even to highly advanced civilizations. Captain Vrex arrived with a group of Vorthan warriors who looked at Kim Min-ho with newfound respect. The reptilian soldiers were known for their pride and aggressive nature, but they approached the humans with genuine curiosity rather than hostility. My warriors have heard about yesterday. They want to learn how a smaller opponent can defeat a larger one. Would you be willing to demonstrate some techniques? Kim Min-ho looked to Commander Lee Taman, who nodded approval. Teaching alien species human combat methods could be valuable for building relationships and showing that humans were willing to share knowledge. I would be honored to share what I know, but I hope your warriors understand that these techniques require years of practice to master properly. Captain Vrex translated for his soldiers, who responded with enthusiastic agreement. The idea that effective combat required long-term dedication and discipline appealed to the warrior culture of the Vorthan species. They respected the fact that human fighting abilities came from hard work rather than natural gifts. The demonstration began simply. Kim Min-ho showed basic principles of leverage and momentum using volunteer Vorthan warriors as training partners. He explained how to use an opponent's size and strength against them by redirecting force rather than meeting it directly. The watching aliens were fascinated by concepts that seemed obvious to humans. The idea that weakness could become strength through proper technique was revolutionary to species that had always relied on natural advantages in combat. A group of hulking creatures called Chronics rolled forward on their stone wheels. They were nearly twice Captain Vrek's size and looked like living boulders with arms. Their leader spoke in a voice like an avalanche. Human techniques are interesting, but they require speed and agility that our species lacks. Do you have methods that work for slower but stronger fighters? Kim Minho thought for a moment, then smiled. Actually, yes. Some of our martial arts were developed specifically for situations where you cannot move quickly. Let me show you something called defensive grappling. He began demonstrating techniques that focused on using superior position and leverage rather than speed. The Chronics warriors were amazed to learn that they could use their tremendous strength more effectively by understanding basic principles of physics and anatomy. Within hours, the training ground had become an impromptu cultural exchange center. Dozens of species gathered to watch humans demonstrate fighting techniques, mental disciplines, and problem-solving methods. In return, the aliens shared their own knowledge and abilities. The floating energy beings called Zephyrite showed Kim Minho how to sense electrical fields in the air around him. The plant-like Verdans demonstrated communication through chemical signals that could convey complex emotions and ideas. The aquatic pelagics taught breathing techniques that could extend underwater endurance far beyond normal human limits. Park Jisoo recorded everything with her devices while providing translation services between species that had never communicated directly before. The knowledge exchange was creating connections that might never have formed without the catalyzing effect of Kim Minho's victory over Captain Vrek's. Station Commander Zephyr himself appeared in the late afternoon to observe the activities. The ancient being rarely left his command center, but the unprecedented cooperation between species had drawn his attention. He watched silently as humans and aliens worked together, learning from each other. Commander Lee Taman approached the station. Commander, with appropriate respect. Sir, we are honored by your presence. I hope our activities meet with your approval. Station Commander Zephyr spoke in a voice like distant stars. These exchanges are more valuable than any formal training exercise we could have organized. Your species has accomplished something remarkable here, Human Commander. You have created genuine cooperation between civilizations that normally view each other as competitors. The ancient being gestured toward the mixed groups of humans and aliens practicing together. In my long experience running this station, I have seen thousands of species attempt to join the Federation. Most focus on proving their strength or advanced technology. Your people are the first to succeed by showing willingness to learn and teach simultaneously. Kim Minho felt a strange mixture of pride and responsibility. He had not planned to become a symbol of human potential, but circumstances had thrust that role upon him. Now the actions of his entire species might be due. Months later, the incident at Nexus Station has become legendary throughout the galaxy. Military academies on dozens of worlds now include case studies of the encounter in their curriculum, analyzing how a smaller opponent can defeat a larger one through superior technique and mental preparation. The footage of Kim Minho's victory plays constantly on Federation news networks, often accompanied by expert commentary from various species about the implications for galactic military doctrine. Earth receives invitations to join elite military coalitions that were previously exclusive to the most powerful species in the Federation. Human instructors are requested at training facilities across known space, with alien warriors eager to learn the combat arts that produced such an impressive victory. The reputation of human soldiers grows with each successful joint operation, as their adaptability and unconventional thinking prove valuable assets in complex military situations. Captain Vrex and Kim Minho maintain a professional friendship that serves as a symbol of interspecies cooperation and mutual respect. Their joint training sessions draw crowds of observers from various worlds, all wanting to witness the partnership between former enemies. The Vorthon warrior often jokes that losing to a human was the best thing that ever happened to his military career, as it opened his mind to new possibilities and strategies. The story concludes with Kim Minho reflecting on how 3 seconds of action changed not just his life but the entire relationship between humanity and the galaxy. He realizes that sometimes the greatest victories come not from defeating enemies but from earning their respect and transforming them into allies. The legacy of that moment in the dining hall continues to ripple outward. creating new opportunities for peace and cooperation between species that might otherwise have remained suspicious of each other. As new human colonies are established throughout Federation space and Earth's influence grows, historians note that it all began with a simple demonstration of human potential. The galaxy learned that day that strength comes in many forms, and that underestimating any species based on appearance alone is a dangerous mistake. The 3 seconds that Captain Vrek spent begging for mercy became the foundation for centuries of successful human integration into the galactic community, proving that sometimes the smallest actions can have the most profound consequences.